Hi everyone, welcome to episode 107 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar, thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Koen van der Wardt from Klangstof about their fantastic new album, Godspeed To The Freaks. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Simple Minds guitarist Charlie Burchill about their latest album, Direction of the Heart.
You know, as you work on quite a lot of different ideas, something emerges. There's a particular type of, I wouldn't say it's like an obvious sound thing, but it's, you start to realise that there's something emerging here. Jim's very good at that. Jim usually picks up on that, and he's very good at articulating what it is. And then it kind of gives you a little bit of a guideline as to where we're going with the bigger project. But to be honest, at the beginning, it's really a blank page. Just there's stuff always there, but we never try it to be too formulaic. And it just depends. I mean, what happened with this album was we had quite a lot of songs, and at the end of it, Jim kind of felt that it was a very energetic album. So there was a few tracks that arguably I felt should have been on the album. They were really strong ideas. But for the type of record that we were making, we decided that we would hold them back and just go with the more focused, energetic stuff.
So check it out. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe for free and share it with your friends. If you want up-to-date music news, album reviews and interviews, then check out our main website at xsnoize.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Search for the tag at XS Noize Music. Here's XS Noize writer Daniel Lynch with a taste of what's been on the website this week.
XS Noize reviewers have been busy this week with some big releases featured on the site. Alex Hoggard gives the new album from the Red Hot Chili Peppers a lacklustre 6 out of 10. He says Return of the Dream Canteen encounters the same issues as the band's last album, recorded during the same sessions. It's too long and standout tracks are few and far between. Lee Campbell is more complimentary about Direction of the Heart from Simple Minds, saying it's a full-throttle juggernaut of an album flushed with celebration, stomp and euphoria. 8 out of 10. Sandra Blemster gives 9 out of 10 to I Don't Belong Anywhere from October Drift, saying there's fire and fury throughout. And there's new music on the site from Joshua Burnside and White Lies, and Bernie McAllister has the Pretty Reckless's Ulster Hall gig in focus. All of the above is at accessnoise.com.
Dutch Sonic Explorers Klangstof have released their fantastic new self-produced album, Godspeed To The Freaks. In this interview, Klangstof frontman Koen van der Wardt talks about the band's formation, writing and recording the new album, musical influences, and much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Koen van der Wardt from Klangstof. Hi Koen, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you, hi.
So Klangstof are currently on tour with the Slow Readers Club. They're a great band, really enjoy them. How's the show's been going?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, with Klangstof we usually just go and visit London and Manchester and then we go back home. So we never really had the UK village experience before. So it's kind of fun to see what people are up to in the countryside as well. And yeah, it's just nice to be able to play here for 3 weeks straight. I mean, it's very different compared to like touring in Europe where everything maybe is a bit nicer, in terms of the stuff you get backstage. And here it's just, you get a bottle of water and no backstage, and no dressing room. So it's a new vibe, but I kind of like the rock and roll approach here in the UK.
You're having to rough it.
Yeah.
So going back to the start, can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely Radiohead. I think when I was maybe like 14 or 15 years old, I remember I bought OK Computer for like €5 or something, like a little budget, like one of those budget things at the record store. And for me, that was really the first time I got into bands. Before that, I was more into whatever young people are into. And all of a sudden I was in this new world with music I didn't know. And I remember straight away after listening to that album that I just wanted to play every single instrument. So that's really how it started. So, I didn't know how to play any instruments, but I just wanted to know how they actually made the record. So it really got me like all different aspects of music making.
Yeah, OK Computer is an absolutely fantastic album. Really, really is. And, you know, they're a great band, and they just every album, they just sort of, you know, split the band up and start again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I love that approach. Really, with Klangstof, we try to do the same thing. Because if you just commit to your sound, I feel like that's the point where it gets boring. You know, it's nice to always do something that don't really know how to do. Because it just makes it fun.
Well, Klangstof, it was originally a solo project for yourself. Why did you decide to bring other guys in and actually form a band?
I think I wrote Close Eyes to Exit basically on my own, which was the first album. I released it back in 2016, I believe. But already then I felt like the album sounded more like a band rather than a solo project. Because there were drums in there were guitars in there, and the whole shebang. So I was like, it makes more sense for Klangstof to be a band rather than just a solo project. So that was really the reasoning behind it. And it's just a funny approach, because after the album was done, I had to find a band that sounded like me being a band. So you really have to kind of find people who know exactly what I'm up to always. So that's been quite a journey. But I think now, especially on the last album, I think I finally got like a group of people together who really understand me. And I feel like now I can just play a guitar thing or a guitar loop, and they know exactly what Klangstof should sound like, which is a very kind of cool experience.
What does the name Klangstof mean? Where does it come from?
So I lived in Norway for a long time. So Klang means reverb in Norwegian, and stof means dust in Dutch. So it really is echo dust.
That would be a great name in itself.
We can still change it. I mean, people here still have a hard time pronouncing it. So
Echo Dust, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
So you've just released your third album, Godspeed To The Freaks. It's absolutely fantastic. When did you start writing and recording this album?
I think it happened pretty soon after the first lockdown. So was it beginning of 2020, I think? We basically had our last album. We released that one in February 2020, and we had a whole European tour. And we ended up only doing 5 or 6 shows. But we decided pretty early on that we didn't want to keep on postponing and do all that stuff. So we just decided to write a new album and try to be at ease with not being able to perform live. And the thing we did do, which we thought was really interesting, was because we missed out on playing live, we decided to really make this a live album, you know, in terms of recording everything as a band rather than sitting behind a computer and just nerding on little software programs that we usually do. So for us, it was kind of a nice way to still be able to play together, but just do it in our little space.
And you also put out an EP, the Ocean View EP. Was that recorded alongside the album?
Yeah, it was basically recorded after the album because we were still pretty scared to release the album because we were still kind of in kind of a lockdown. So we thought, let's just write something more and we'll release the album once we know for sure that we can play again. So that's why we had to wait. I mean, the album was almost done for 2 years, until we finally released it. So, we've been sitting on this for quite a while.
And is there a concept behind the album?
Well, I think what we all realized during the writing process was that we all felt very at ease being in isolation together. I think we managed to open up a lot more and kind of be ourselves in the best way possible. So instead of having this layer of nonsense around you to just keep, to not break emotionally, all of that was just gone during the writing process. And we thought, hey, that might be a nice thing to actually write an album about, you know, to just see if we can, make that into the new theme. So that's why we ended up with the mascot as well. It's just meant to be this layer of nonsense that we all carry around us. And yeah, it just became a very fun project to work on. And especially working in isolation and in lockdown, you don't really think about the music ever being released, because you don't really know what it's like to play it in front of people. So I think we all managed to be a lot more honest on this album, just because we weren't afraid that people were going to listen to it, even though they eventually would. But yeah, it was a very, very nice writing process, and I think the most honest album we've ever done.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying it. Let's talk about some of the songs. The first track you put out from the album was Disguiser. It's a brilliant, uplifting track. Why did you choose to put that out first? Did you feel it represented the album best?
I think it was, I always like to just start off with something a bit more upbeat, because it's a bit easier for people to kind of get back into the Klangstof rhythm. And I think it's probably like the fastest track on the album. And it was also the first song that we ended up recording for the album. So for us, it really was kind of the starting point for our writing process as well. So it made a lot of sense to show people like this, the start of the project, and taking it from there. So that was really the reasoning behind the album or the single.
My favorite song on the album is Truth. What can you tell me about the genesis of that song?
That one was probably the most fun we had recording. I think it's by far like the most fun track on the record.
Okay.
And I remember it was just, me and my drummer, we were just jamming a lot. And usually when we jam, I like to pick up the bass guitar instead of a guitar. And just have a lot of fun. And I remember it was like 30 degrees in our studio in Amsterdam. It was crazy hot. So we spent maybe 2 or 3 hours in our underwear, just jamming on the bass line and the drum hook. And that's basically how it started. So it all, yeah, it was just one of those tracks where you just want to dance to it. And I feel like that was something that was missing as well from the rest of the album, that it was getting a bit too serious, and we just wanted to have a bit of fun as well. So it really for us was a kind of a nice way to make it a bit more airy.
It was definitely airy if you're starting recording in your underwear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, great times.
I love the minimal sound of Plastic Gun. I love the spacious, claustrophobic vibe to the song. Yeah, no, definitely. I think what we didn't want to do was to overproduce this album. So we really wanted to put all of our effort into the actual song instead of the production of it. And the great thing you get then is that you leave a lot of empty space in a recording, because sometimes it's just better to not fill up all the gaps and make this super poppy production. So yeah, we just had a lot of fun recording this, just because it was in fact a very easy process, because we allowed ourselves to not go too deep into making it the most poppy sounding thing in the world. It was just like, this is what we want to sound like now, and let's just do it. Another favorite track of mine is How I Feel. Who's the female vocalist on the song?
Oh, it's a good friend of mine from Amsterdam. She's called Tessa, and her artist name is Someone. And I've been working on I'm doing a lot of commercials back in Holland to earn some extra cash. So, and I know her kind of from that scene. We usually work on commercials together. If she needs a guitar player or I need a vocalist, we always ring each other up and be like, hey, do you want to do this? But we always had a really good vibe in the studio. So we had this plan about starting a little alter ego and doing an EP in a week. And How I Feel was one of the songs that we wrote. And I remember saying to her, like, I really want this to be on the Klangstof album. Is that okay? And she was super down. So it really evolved from not a Klangstof song into turning it into a Klangstof song eventually. But it was just a lot of fun to just get a bit of a fresh vibe in there. And I also wanted her to do the lead vocals, just because it's nice that I'm not singing for once.
No, it works really well. It's a great song, and it's a pleasant surprise hearing the female vocal coming in.
Yeah. Maybe we should just have all female on the next album.
Yeah, surprise everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Sylvia is a wonderful way to finish the album. I love the way you have the voices, like a choir-like voices going through the song. It's really amazing. It sounds fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was by far like the most emotional song we ever recorded. And we recorded this one all the way at the end when we were all just feeling very comfortable. And usually when we record, I don't tell the guys what the song's about, like lyrically, because I want them to kind of fill in their own little story. So I don't want the drummer to be like, oh, this song is about this, so now I have to drum like this. But for that one, I really felt the need to tell everyone what the song was about. And immediately the vibe changed into something like very emotional for everyone, because the song is about my little brother. And I grew up with a narcissistic father, and I always had like the urge to help him, but I never really did because I was afraid myself as well. So Sylvia is actually just another name because it's my brother, who's obviously not called Sylvia. But telling that story and singing the song together was just, maybe the most special moment of recording the album. And I cherish that a lot.
Is it the song you feel most connected to?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song, and it's certainly a great way to finish the album. And you mentioned Radiohead at the start. There's certainly some Radiohead inspiration in there. Was that intentional?
Definitely.
Or did it just come out naturally?
Well, it just happens naturally, and we tried to steer away from it before and be very kind of obvious about it. Like, oh, this sounds like Radiohead, let's not do it. But this one, we were just like, if it happens, it happens. And I mean, it's not a bad thing. No. So in the end, I'm happy that it sounds like Radiohead. And I'm also secretly happy that they're getting really old and we're still pretty young. So someone has to follow them up one day.
Yeah. They're when they split up, for good, there will be a void.
Exactly.
Are you happy how much your sound has evolved musically from the last two albums on this record?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more back to basics. I feel like the second album was pretty much the odd one now, where we went pretty synthesizer based and do all that kind of stuff. This one really felt like Homecoming in many ways. Like it was really about the songs rather than about the production. And yeah, the main thing that's different for me with this album compared to the other ones is that I can still listen to it. So to me, that's always a very special thing, when you can really enjoy your own album. And I don't know why I all of a sudden enjoy something I wrote myself, but it's a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Iconic director and photographer Anton Corbijn has worked with you too, and Depeche Mode did the visuals for Godspeed to the Freaks. How did he get involved?
Well, yeah, it's funny. A really good friend of ours has been like a childhood friend of Anton. So that's way back in the 60s or 70s. I mean, these guys are also getting pretty old. And we managed to have a meeting with him when we played in London in April of last year, or this year still, April of this year. And we met at like his fancy hotel somewhere in like this posh neighborhood in London. And we wanted to basically just have a little chat with him. And he all of a sudden came up with a lot of ideas of what he wanted to do. And we were like, yeah, should we maybe give this a shot and do something together? And he was really kind of up for it. So we met in Amsterdam later that year to shoot everything. And for us, it was really nice, especially like on the press photos. Like as a band, you never really feel like a model. So it's always an awkward situation to be in. But with Anton, it was like he had a little story in mind and you were just like part of his story. So you didn't really feel like you were having to be a model or something. So it was a really nice way for us to kind of be taken photos of. And yeah, everyone was pretty starstruck when we were with Anton. I mean, back in Holland, he's like a god. So
is that right?
It's amazing when those kind of people want to team up with you and make something. So for us, it was just amazing.
So Klangstof supported the Pixies over the summer. How much did you enjoy the shows?
Ooh, they were great. we were very afraid that we were too soft for Pixies fans. So going on tour with them, but it's been amazing. I mean, being a support act is something I always like because there's less pressure. I mean, you go on stage and no one knows you. And it doesn't really matter. So it's a very nice way of playing. And the Pixies have just been great to us. So yeah, it's been really, really nice. And we're joining them to Australia and New Zealand in December as well. So we're not done yet. But seeing all these iconic venues, I mean, that's something you dream of as a musician. And it doesn't really matter if you're the support act or the main act. You've still seen all those places now. So, yeah, it's been great. It's been great.
What ambitions do you have for Klangstof going forward?
Ooh, I don't know. I think one of my ambitions before doing this was just to be happy about the album. And that obviously has happened. So yeah, it's not like I'm someone who likes to have a lot of expectations and stuff like that. So I'm just very curious about how people are going to, react to the album. That's always kind of the main thing you want to wait for. And if no one likes it, we'll just make a new one, with all the love we have. And if they do end up liking it, we'll probably be on the road for the next 5 years, which is also great. So, no matter what happens, I think we will all be very happy with whatever's going on.
I like to ask my guests the following questions. For us music fans, music is the soundtrack of our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
Ooh. Well, I think for me, that's a good one. I mean, OK Computer will always have like the most special place in my heart because it really made me into who I am. I don't think if I wouldn't have had that album, I wouldn't have been a musician. So in terms of a life-changing album, that's definitely the one for me.
Out of all the music in your collection, which artist or band do you have the most albums by?
Yeah, that's an easy one now. No, that has to be Radiohead as well. I think I have a lot of like Arctic Monkeys and Chili Peppers as well. Probably Radiohead still. I got everything.
Okay. Which song or album is your guilty pleasure?
That's a tough one. I do tend to, it's more like we do listen to a lot of like EDM when we're touring on the road. So a lot of 90s dance music. I don't know if you know Gigi D'Agostino.
I might know it if I heard it, but I don't know it by name.
It's just like this Italo disco dude from like the early 2000s. It's the worst music ever, but it's great.
Fantastic. Well, Koen, that is my questions finished. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. The album is fantastic. And I wish you all the best success with it. Where are you playing tonight?
We're in Norwich. It's called The Waterfront.
Good.
Exciting.
And how has your songs been going down with the Slow Readers Club's audience?
It's good. I don't think we've ever done the same set twice. So we're trying to just, their music is pretty bombastic and loud. So we kind of try to pick the right songs to make our set as loud as possible as well. So, I think we're trying a few new songs tonight and,
brand new songs or songs that you haven't performed live?
Yeah, we played Sylvia for the first time last night in Stoke and that was really great. So, we'll definitely keep that one in the set.
Good. Well, all the best, and thanks again for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the gig tonight, Koen.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.